Welcome to the Be Student Podcast, and thank you for joining me. I'm Betsy Gardner. I'm a CEO in Central Florida, a public speaker, a business consultant, and executive coach. I've worked across many industries and sectors, spanning several global markets. As the president and CEO of the Winter Park Chamber, I have the unique opportunity of connecting with the most dynamic, talented, and innovative professionals across our region. Think about it as the B-side to a record, where there's the thing that they recorded as the hit, but then there's the stuff they're passionate about on the B side. I launched Be Student Podcast to bring the experts I'm in conversation with on a daily basis to you, to help you be more successful and impactful in your work. So let's get started. Welcome to the Be Student Podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking to Deborah Mendonca, the executive director of The Glass Knife, a multi-million-dollar bakery and cafe in Winter Park that is truly as beautiful as it is delicious. If you haven't been to The Glass Knife, you have to try it. They'll be opening a second location soon on Park Avenue in Winter Park, and we could not be more excited. Deborah, welcome. You are the definition of an American success story. You immigrated to the U.S. from Brazil with essentially just a dream and the determination and resilience to succeed. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the podcast was for people to draw inspiration from your tenacity and your resilience, and to really kind of look at the B side of your record, which is what's that drive all about? So welcome. I'm really thrilled that you're here today.
Thank you. I'm honored. Best day of my life.
Oh, but that's the positivity and the energy that you bring to everything that you do. You know, to look at you now, you're running a multi-million-dollar business. You look like a professional woman. You speak English flawlessly. Tell us how you got your start in America, though, because it wasn't always this way, right?
Well, certainly, yes. So when I came, I had one luggage and a big dream to just be a change in history from where my family can go and how further we can go and be able to achieve my individual dreams as well. So I came with no English, just dream and a few $100. Started everywhere by practicing English with homeless in New York City.
Hold on. You would practice English with homeless people?
Yes.
What would you guys talk about?
Well, I could only afford 1 month of English school in Times Square. Not the kind of school you want to go to learn English.
Okay.
And then after that, I had to use my free resources, I guess. So I used to trade Newport cigarettes for 20-minute conversations with homelesses everywhere. Just sit down and say, hello, what's your name? And they would engage with you. It's the easiest way, really.
How did you know? Did you come up with that, or did you learn that hack from somebody else?
I came up with that because I only had happy hour bars with $1 drinks. That is the only thing I could afford at the time, or free chats and free chats.
So we can shut this podcast down right now with the one takeaway for our listeners, which is rethink how you get from A to B and think of different resources. Trading Newport cigarettes for 20-minute conversations with homeless people to practice your English.
Yes.
Now, were you also watching TV? What were the other tips to get your English where you wanted it to be?
At the time, Netflix was a big thing for me. Subtitles in English, audio in English, and I would not understand a thing.
And how did your family take it when you said, I'm going to leave my cozy life here in Brazil and move to America? How did they take it?
So the secret was that when I was 16, I told my mom I was moving from the suburbs of Espírito Santo, Brazil, to the big São Paulo.
Okay.
So I already had that transition at 16. And then by 21, 22, I was living on my own for 6 years in the biggest capital of our country, Brazil. So
you already got your big city card stamped, right?
It was an internship.
Okay. And then you said, that's it. I'm going to New York and I don't speak a word of English and I don't have a mountain of money. I'm just going to go figure it out.
I literally saw a commercial on TV. I kid you not. I saw New York and the Statue of Liberty on TV and people just looking fabulous and living their dreams and being in a rush. I'm like, I want this. That's where I belong.
So you're 21 and you arrive in New York, and what happens?
I go to a hostel. And the hostels have a limitation of how many days you can stay.
Okay.
I was only able to stay 10 days.
Okay.
And I remember talking to the receptionist, where can I look for rooms to rent? Using Google Translator at the time,
Right.
internet, like I didn't have an iPhone.
Did you have a network of other Brazilians that you could rely on in New York or no?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely nothing. I found a room down in Brooklyn somewhere on Craigslist and I went to visit.
Oh, that is terrifying. Okay.
Yeah. And it was a lady that was the owner. And I said, well, I feel a little bit safer. I'm going to take the risk. I got this tiny room with no windows, stayed there for a couple months, obviously didn't work out. And I kept just moving until I started slowly finding myself.
So what did you do for work when you got to Brooklyn with one room with no window?
I ended up knocking. Well, I printed a very cheesy resume. I had no knowledge on, how to do things professionally. And I literally knocked on doors and hoped that people would buy my smiles and my charisma and feel my hustle,
So what happened?
I got a job as a busser and I used to host and then server, barista.
So as your language skills improved, you moved up the ladder.
Correct.
Okay. So you start out as a busser.
Yes.
And where was the restaurant?
It is on Chinatown.
Okay.
On Elizabeth Street. It's still on this day. So every time I go to New York, I stop by.
Why do I feel like it's going to have a plaque in front of it one day? Is that this is where Deborah started her American journey?
Yeah. It's wild.
How long were you a busser?
Well, I was bussing and kind of serving a little bit on the pool. It was a billiard table area, so it's essentially beer. You know what I mean? I think it was about 3 to 4 months max.
Okay.
And then I was able to step in as a bartender. That was really difficult because the other bartenders disliked me with everything they had. They were so against me being there. They mocked my language. They mocked the way I looked, the time that I used to make drinks. I went home crying essentially every night for the first months, but I've never gave up. And then essentially I started making my little space up and up. And I was a bartender there for a few months, maybe 6 more months or so.
So for our listeners, one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is for people to kind of get some of your secrets to how do you push through when things are really tough. Like we're in a really weird environment in our country right now.
Yeah.
Things are very upsetting. The economy is twitchy. We don't know what's happening. How do you get what's your process to get through? I'm coming home and crying every night. People are making fun of me.
Yeah.
I probably don't have enough money. I don't speak the language very well. What are you telling yourself? How are you shoring yourself up every day to show up for another day and not just say, forget it, I'm tapping out here and moving back to Brazil? What did you do?
So I think the biggest push for me is having a clear notion on what my goal is.
Okay.
What do I want to get out of this? Why am I going through this? If you don't have a clear goal, you're going to give up quickly.
So what was your clear goal?
I wanted to be able to make money. I wanted to have, a stable financial lifestyle. That did not happen nearly as close as from that time. But at least I wanted to practice English, understand how the industry works. Just being a bartender, server, and host, I understand what clients' needs are, and then I can better mold myself to the role that I want to eventually have, which is the role that I have now all those years later.
And did you plan to come to New York to do food service, or did you plan to do something else?
I came in actually to pursue an acting career. That was my big dream. So I ended up going to acting school in New York City with scholarships, which it wasn't really a thing there. But I just pushed myself so hard on the final project. The school kept giving me scholarships to come back in another course the next year. So I ended up doing 4 years at that New York Film Academy School in New York City.
And they saw something in you,
Yeah.
which I'm sure everybody who's watching this right now can say, yeah, I'm sure they saw something in you. And it is your charisma. It is your drive. It is your sense of hustle. How did you know you could rely on those things well enough to move to another country?
Rely on my characteristics? I didn't know. The thing that I knew is that my mother would be with me regardless on my choices or outcomes.
Okay.
And I knew I could come back to her heart.
Okay.
So when I first sat down with her at 16, saying, Mama, I'm moving to São Paulo with 20 million people from a tiny suburb of Espírito Santo, she said, baby, it's going to be difficult. I'm letting you know. But if this is your dream and that's the call that you feel in your heart, you can go. Worst case scenario, you come back to me.
Aww.
That gave me strength.
We hear about moms a lot on this podcast. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in New York getting teased. It's brutal. You're probably not loving being a bartender or a busser or any of these things. How did you go through, like, did you say, okay, today I've got to take care of exercising so my mental health is good. I need to take care of being with friends. What was your process to get strong enough to go through all of that? Because that was several years
Yeah.
before you got to a management role, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do you go through those years where it's just a beat down? It's a nonstop beat down.
Yeah. That's actually a great question, because if I tell you, Betsy, that I started being aware of mental health when COVID hit, you wouldn't believe it. Everything that I went through in New York City, my willingness to succeed was so high that I really didn't pay attention to anything else. It was beat after beat after beat, but I was there. I was doing it. I was in action. I was moving. I was
Yep.
going through the motions of life, and that kind of kept me alive.
Yep. So
I
just showing up.
yeah.
90% of it is just showing up every day after day after day.
Yeah.
Okay, when did you stop trading cigarettes for homeless chats?
I-
How many months?
I think I was 6 months in when I did enough Netflix, enough trading cigarettes with homelesses, enough happy hours with the same beer for 3 hours. And then I just threw myself in the acting course, and I judged myself so harshly. I think that gets in my way until this day.
Yeah.
I am the hardest critical of myself.
Yeah. Well, I think people who are hard on themselves have that drive. They
Yeah.
have that internal drive, right?
Yeah.
And that's a balance between how hard is it good for me to be on myself versus how much of it helps me get where I need to go, but at what cost,
Yeah.
right? So what was the cost, do you feel like, when you were going through that period in New York?
I think a lot of just going through humiliation at work is something so unacceptable. And at the time, I thought it was part of it, that I had to go through it. Some things stick into your memories, which are not cool. But thank God, you know, today I have enough maturity to understand it was everything about whoever did those horrible things to me and nothing about me, that I need to protect my most pure essence, which is love, empathy, connection, drive, energy. And I really today don't want to let anybody get into my DNA essence qualities.
I think that's clear. So you have this clear vision of what you want to do, your clear goal, and you have a self-awareness that this is my essence, right? So I want our listeners to think about, do they have an essence? Do they have a clear essence? If not, maybe go to a coffee shop and write down what that essence is so you can go back to it on the hard days. And then also make sure that your goal is clear, because if your goal is clear, you will be willing to work as a busser. So I did 2 startup companies, and people think being a startup entrepreneur is glamorous. And you and I, but look at your face. There's nothing about it that's glamorous, right? It is just you're begging people to let you do this or that, and you're trading favors with friends. You know, I remember begging my friend who was a photographer. I'm like, would you please shoot this catalog? We don't have any money. And so the people that think that that's glamorous haven't done it, because it's super unglamorous. But you are willing to work as a busser to get on the ladder, to do the next thing, to be where you are. And I do think that you have to have that kind of grit and self-reliance. You know, we talk to entrepreneurs on this podcast. They just had an internal sense of, I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
And so on those hard days in business, which we all have, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a business leader or you're just operating your own little small business, go back to that essence of who you are and get clear about your goal to recalibrate when you've had a setback, because we all have setbacks in business, right? And how do you get more intentional to move to that next leap? Any other tips for people about what you did to move from A to B when you first were going through that?
I think embracing your failure. It's so hard for us to acknowledge that we've messed up and we've done things that it's not really who we are. If we don't embrace it and continue to fight against it, it's going to push you behind. You know, it's going to delay your process of self-acceptance. Everybody that is amazing on several things has the same level in the monster side as well. So you got to make friends with it.
So I look at you as someone who hasn't failed. How did you think you failed?
What?
Yeah.
I fail so much.
Give us an
really.
example of a time you failed.
Oh my gosh, several times, you know, the way that somebody's spoken with me and I've replied on the same level or worse. I let them get the best of me. You know, that's not the kind of person that I am. This happens a lot, you know. Sometimes the borders between how professional I can be and how much I actually show my vulnerability gets through the window and I'm like, oh gosh, I showed this side and the person did not embrace it. So, those are tricky things. The way that I speak with some people sometimes when life gets really busy and you think people should be in your pace and they're not.
Yeah.
There's so many
Oh,
challenges.
nobody's going to work at your pace.
I know.
Nobody. Nobody's going to work at your pace. So now you are in a management role in New York. Take us to how you end up in Central Florida and how you end up here.
Yeah. I was really lucky to get an upper management role in a fine dining from a celebrity chef in New York City. And he saw that I would work endless hours and do whatever it takes to be on that role. And that's how I feel I got the opportunity, because I would do 3 times. When COVID hit, I was exhausted and I understood my mental health was not okay.
Okay.
I was like, wow, I've been hustling for 8 years at that time until 2020.
So it took you 8 years to go from arriving to the room with no windows to being a manager at a fine dining restaurant.
A GM, yeah.
Holy cow.
I was 27 when I landed my first GM on a fine dining job. Yeah, it was incredible.
Oh my gosh.
It was really rough. But the fun thing is that everything he asked me to do, for example, the wine list, which was something I had no idea, I said, I will do it. And I used to call all the wine reps in New York City and say, come on in, teach me about grape varietals, and I'll buy wine from you to put it on the list.
Again, we're trading cigarettes with homeless people. This is amazing. But I think a lot of people don't understand that if you're going to do something entrepreneurial, that you have to be resourceful like that. And you have to trade value, even when you think you don't have it, right?
Yes.
So here you are as this immigrant with nothing. What value do you have? Well, you've got your smarts, right? You figured a way out to teach yourself English for a pack of cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Or you're using your resources with these wine reps. I'll get your wine in where you want it to be if you can teach me about this. That's really interesting that we've already heard 2 examples of that, and we've only been talking for a few minutes. So you are now, you feel like your mental health suffering. You're working in fine dining. You're probably finishing at what, 1:00 in the morning?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's COVID.
Yeah.
So what happens?
So COVID forced us at New York to be 45 days at home without contact. And we had, it was really challenging. And I remember just finally being able to breathe and understand what I was going through as a human. I used to work 6 days a week, 11 a.m. to sometimes 1 a.m.
Oh,
yeah, it was really
wow.
intense. So you don't really have time to process anything. And when COVID hit and I did process, I felt I was walking away from my essence, the great things that I have to really share with the world. And that worried me a little bit. I thought it was becoming a little too tough. And I missed my bubbly, loving, empathetic, cute side, and that easy and pure energy that was kind of phasing out. People do say when you stay in New York for too long, it might become a little bit of a challenge for your soul. And I felt that was happening with me. So before the airport shut down, the day before, I came to Orlando for just 1 week. A friend of mine was here. And he said, come to my house. I have 2 rooms. You're going to spend a week here. I came and I was just impressed with the energy. The sun waking you up. Every building has a pool. I was like, oh my gosh, imagine living here. How happier will I be?
Right. Now, when you were living in New York, did you have a lot of Brazilian friends, or did you, when I was an immigrant, I lived in London. And with respect to my American brethren, I didn't want to hang out with Americans over there. I wanted to hang out with people from different parts of the world so I could be inspired by them. Did you have a bias against hanging out with Brazilians, or did you know Brazilians in New York?
I love that question because I actually ran away from Brazilians within the first years.
Yes.
I kind of set a goal that in the first 3 years, I would not engage deeply with any Brazilians or build friendships because I wanted to lose the accent, right? Yep. I wanted to understand the culture. I wanted to fit in a little better. So
yeah, it's a better way to go. It's harder, right? Because that's the easy safety security blanket thing, is to go back to the people from your country. But when you got here, surely you had to see how many Brazilians were here.
Yes.
And were you happy about that? Were you like, now that I've made it in America, I can come back to my Brazilian side? Is that part of your thought process when you moved here?
This is exactly what happened.
Okay.
There's something about our own country's energy, that Brazil has, that we feel very supported and, embraced. So I definitely had a ton of Brazilian friends here.
Okay,
I loved
good.
it.
And that made a difference for you.
Sure.
So you come here for the week. And you say, that's it. I'm not going back to New York. I'm going to get my stuff and then out.
Yes. And then I came here and COVID reopened everything eventually. And then the restaurant that I was in sent me the offer letter saying, hey, we're ready. I'll see you, X date. And I'm like, so I just moved to a different state.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started a life here, but I didn't have anything preset at the time.
Yeah. And then how did you find out about the glass knife opportunity and what attracted you to that?
Actually, the Hospitality Birds spoken with an owner on Park Avenue, and his restaurant was shut down because of COVID, and he wanted somebody else to reopen and rebrand it. And that was my opportunity to act as a partner owner. It was the only role I haven't done in a restaurant. So I ended up opening 2 restaurants on Park Avenue just to practice that ownership experience from beginning to end.
Right.
And then I left and say, well, now I'm just going to consult because that's my big dream in the long term, eventually just consult. And then I did that and I got a couple clients and then the Glass Knife called me. And it was a lot of meetings. They found me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
There was a lot of meetings back and forth until I said, you know what? I'll take one more company before I just consult. And I've been here for 4 years.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so now let's talk about you as leader because every space you walk into, you lead. Were you a leader as a little girl? Were you the student government president, or were you the head of your brownie troop, or how did you express your leadership, Jean, from early on? Because I know you did. There's no way you did.
So funny enough, I was elected junior mayor of my city at 12.
Mayor. What was the job of the junior mayor?
We actually went to the how do you say in English, the political place that they meet as a mayor?
Yeah.
What's the name of that?
Well, we call it City Hall, the
City
chambers.
Hall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went to the actual City Hall, sat into actual meetings, took notes, and proposed new laws. At the age of 12. Yes.
Okay, so I nailed it. You've been a leader your whole life. Yeah. And so when you got to New York, how are you starting to express your leadership, Jean? How was that starting to show itself?
It's interesting because I started noticing that some people would listen to me. When I was a bartender, I was able to engage with the busser. He would listen to me. When I was a server, I was able to engage with, the hostess or whatever. So I was always able to get people to hear me out or ask me questions.
So you were influencing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from the age of 12, and then what do you think are some of the things that you would describe as your leadership brand? What do we get when we get you as leader?
So right now, for me, it's all about everybody around me. When I look for a management role now to support us as a company, I ask them what they want out of life, not just out of this job.
Right.
Because I need to be able to offer to them not just a financial source, but a human. How can I support you to be comfortable, happy, fulfilled, and evolving within your goals, your personal goals?
So you're treating them as people first, employees second.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and that's your differentiator when it comes to that. But I think also when you say it's your drive and your energy that you're able to energize teams. I know you guys just went through a big Valentine's Day at the Glass Knife. I think it was your biggest ever. That's kind of the Super Bowl for you guys, right? Because it's desserts and everything. How do you motivate people to get ready for something like that, where it's just going to be all day, people with high expectations, and I want it the way I want it right now? Like, how do you get people ready for something like that?
Things that have been working really well for us is making sure everybody owns a piece of it.
Okay.
When people feel responsible for their little world or big world or whatever it is, they feel like they belong and they want to put everything that they have out there.
Right.
They treat it as theirs. So I make sure that the boundaries are clear, who has what.
Right.
And what our expectation as a company is on the accomplishment or of every department. And we do a lot of pre-production too. So I sit down with each of them. Let's go over on how this is going to happen, as little or as big as the task is.
Right.
It's just that pre-production side of this, plus open communication on what my expectation is to each department, and then asking every resource that they might need from us, and if they're ready.
Well, I think you raise an important point. There's a great book called The Founder's Mentality. And, in startups, the founder brings all this passion, all the hustle, all the grit, the idea. The founder owns this thing. So the founder brings his or her unique brand of everything to this. And then what happens is usually the company goes through a series of investment and the founder's no longer the leader. And so the company struggles because it was so built on that founder's energy, special brand of everything. But I think, I'm a CEO, and I think people think when you become CEO, there's certain things you don't have to do anymore. But if you have a founder's mentality, like I pick up trash in our parking lot and people are like, what are you doing picking up trash in the parking lot? I'm like, it's my parking lot. And I don't want trash in my parking lot because I think that sends the wrong message about who we are and what we're doing. So if nobody else has seen it and I see it, I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah.
And so, even though legally the Chamber of Commerce doesn't belong to me, I have a sense of ownership over everything that goes there. It's very personal for me. Do you feel like that's a personal thing for you, that when something's put out, that's Deborah's guaranteed that it's going to be this way? You put your personal kind of brand and energy into that.
Yeah, 100%. Everything that I do in life today is very personal. I don't take things that I cannot fully devote myself and make it work.
Okay, so let's talk about the leadership piece in another way. You have a bazillion followers on Instagram. How many is it, by the way?
Right now, I'm just a little over 10,000, I think.
Just a little over 10,000, I think. Okay. And they're speaking multiple languages, right? And all over the world. And that's really cool. So you're bringing your personal brand experience to Instagram. Is that your main channel, Instagram? I know you're on LinkedIn as well, but mostly Instagram. Yeah. When you said, okay, did you say I'm going to set out to build my Instagram presence? I'm going to get to 10,000. Do you set goals like that?
So initially, when my business life wasn't so intense, I said, let's explore and see if I can make a business out of it, right? But eventually, there's some things that I don't necessarily agree. For example, faking that your day is being great just so people think you have a perfect life. I'm not into that.
So you're not doing get ready with me videos?
No, I'm not doing that.
But what you are doing videos of are all the things you're out doing in this region as a leader. You're an MC. You do all this event work. I mean, you have this whole rich avocational life where you're convening Brazilian nationals, Americans, and all these events that you do. Tell us a little bit more about that. And then your Instagram storying about it. Tell us about that a little bit.
So the interesting thing is that by the time I was like, I don't know if I want to push really Instagram anymore. It takes a lot of time. I need to focus more on business. I continue to get inquiries on like, let's collaborate. Let's do this together. And now, I select brands that I really trust and I think are great for other people to know about. And obviously all my events, there's a lot of nonprofits that I feel like should put their names out there that I would love to support. So I do that a lot. Some brands as well that I partner up, and just some personal messagings too. Sometimes I just go in there to share what I think about things.
So I know you were just the American Heart Association's Woman of the Year.
Leader of Impact.
Leader of
I was
Impact.
Nominated.
And this is after 4 years of moving to this community, you're seen as a leader in this community now, not just junior mayor, but I know that you're the class rep for Leadership Winter Park. You're definitely a leader in the eyes of the Chamber of Commerce. You've won many awards from us. Tell us about, is that something you planned on doing, or is it just, it finds you?
All those things found me, but it's so important because sometimes when I get demotivated temporarily, I pray that I find the recognition that resonates to my heart, and some things that I thought it would resonate from the past no longer does. This podcast today, for me, it was a recognition of my work. And it made me very emotional and thankful.
Oh, oh, that's so great. Well, I look at the body of your work and I think, okay, she's done everything harder than I have, right? And so I grew up American. Even when I immigrated to England where they speak English, and I went with a whole family and had lots of resources, right? I can't imagine doing anything as courageous as what you've done. And everything is self-taught, and everything, there's a drive. I feel like there's a lot of people that are waiting for their lives to happen, and that you actually have to meet the moment. You actually have to do that preparation piece so that when the luck comes, you're ready, right? And that's you trading cigarettes. That's you being innovative. That's you being resourceful, right? So when we think about what I want our listeners to take away today, it's certainly inspiration, because I think your story, every time you tell it, people just sort of stand back in gobsmacked wonder at how you did this. And so what can they learn from what you've done, right? Which is have a goal, use your resources, make sure you've got your essence, which is what you've said. What else do you want people to take away from your story that can be inspirational to them in showing up day after day, all those little moments you've got to collect in order to have the big success that you enjoy now?
For me, is that life is made for you to fail, learn, overcome, and grow. You will do this.
Whoa, hold on. Fail, learn, overcome, and grow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it.
You will do all those things sitting in your couch, or you're going to do these things fighting for what you really are and what resonates with you. So why not choose the best path?
Fail, learn, overcome, and grow. Okay, if there's one thing y'all take away from this, it's obviously trade cigarettes for language lessons, but fail, learn, overcome, and grow. What a simple, easy thing to anchor into in order, because people look at you today and think, well, you've never had to do anything hard. Look at you. You got 10,000 Instagram followers. You run a multi-million-dollar business. It's all easy for you, right? But you've had to do fail, learn, overcome, and grow. How many cycles?
1,000?
Yeah. Yeah.
At least?
Yeah. And I think it's that persistence. Just saying, I'm going to have to keep doing several more hundred cycles of this to get from where I am now to where I want to be.
Yeah.
What's your, I know I do want to talk about this because I got to be part of this. Tell us the story about you finally becoming an American citizen.
Wow. That was pretty wild, actually. Last year, I've heard that I had to do surgery. I had already applied for my citizenship, and I had to remove, a couple organs. I know it sounds really weird to say it that way. And then my letter of citizenship finally came back, scheduled for the day after my surgery. And I was just extremely happy. And those are one of the things that you can't really choose the date of. So I had to do this full surgery. And then 24 hours later, I had to stand up and go to the immigration place and do the live test.
In your hospital gown.
In my hospital gown.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we can put a picture in the show notes of this, I think we need to, because I think it's extraordinary. You don't just get to write back to immigration and say, no, thanks, that day doesn't work for me.
I waited for 12 years. I wouldn't say no. I would just hustle through it.
So you just rocked up in your hospital gown, and what happened?
Well, I couldn't sit down, and the lady was really weird out. She's like, what are you doing? Can you just sit and answer the questions? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I just came out of the hospital.
And so what did she say?
She started, she's like, are you is this serious? And I'm like, yes, this is serious.
And you went back to the hospital after your thing, right? Or did you go home?
I was able to go home.
Okay.
Yeah, but I couldn't do much.
But you did your immigration test.
I did my immigration test, and I got everything right. The funniest thing, Betsy, I woke up from surgery that they do the full anesthesia thing. And when they asked, are you okay? I was answering the test questions in my head. I practiced so much that, I woke up and I was answering the questions, and then my sister said, she's okay, she's good. You know what I mean?
I just love it. And then how did you find out you became an American citizen that day?
They tell you right then. They ask you 10 questions. You study 100 questions. They choose randomly 10, and you have to get 7 right at least.
Okay.
And it's about who are the presidents, what date was the Proclamation of Republic written, and it's very detailed, and you just got to get everything right.
And so you got it all right, and they say, what?
You are now an American citizen.
And we got you in there just in time to have you vote.
Yes.
It was wonderful.
Exactly.
We're very into voter engagement at the chamber, so we loved it. We had a celebration for you. We gave you a Statue of Liberty hat and everything. But what has it been like? I mean, being an American citizen?
I feel like that my voice is being heard. I love to fight for the people that needs their voice heard and not necessarily have the chance. So I feel I can represent those people. I was extremely satisfied and happy to go out and vote and cast my vote.
Yeah.
I belong, after 12 years, I finally belong. It's a feeling that Inexplicable.
Oh, and then you still now wear your Brazil necklace on your, because we're never going to
Yes.
not be the country from which we came.
Yeah.
I got to experience a love of two countries, and it's a really, really cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And I love how you're using your voice to help drive voter engagement, to convene the Brazilian and the American community. Your leadership presence, your philanthropy, and of course your business success make you a huge presence in Central Florida. We're so lucky to have you here, and also to have you as an American citizen who gives back so much. As we think about wrapping up, do you have any other parting thoughts for our viewers from what they can learn from your story, besides a story of grit and resilience that I think is just very inspirational?
Well, I have an endless need of evolving as a human being, and I'm finally coming to an understand that walks side by side with my business development, self-development. I'm getting better as a human, as a person, and it's all about what makes the community stronger and better. It's never nothing about of what I want. As a leader, you got to understand the needs of the bigger picture around you and
Yep.
be able to give that to the people that need more than you.
So what do you think is next for you?
For me, everything. I'm
'Cause
ready.
I love watching this.
It's so funny, this question, because for my last 12 years here 13 is going to be this year in the US, I had everything planned.
Right, of course you did.
Yes, and the reach was to be exactly where I am with you right now. This closes a cycle, and from here on, I'm open to the universe to send everything my way or nothing. I'm living today, I'm living the present. I'm definitely ready, and bring it on.
I love it. Deborah, thank you for spending time with us today. I love the privilege of being one of your cheerleaders from the sideline. I think you are the perfect example of what we'd all hope for as an immigrant to the U.S. I mean, what a give back person you are, and a story of inspiration, and a successful businesswoman and great community leader. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you for being such an inspiration. I'm honored to be sitting next to you having a chat. This is great. My mom is going to love it. I love you, Mom. They know all about you.
Thank you.
Thank you.